So I think being part of a partnership is something that gives you a sense of belonging to something that's bigger than just yourself. Perhaps I'm a head teacher, and knowing that there's a network of people out there that that can support you, that can challenge you, that can give you that sense of connectedness for yourself as a head, for your staff, for your middle leaders, your ECTs, and but most importantly, of course, for your pupils as well. It's being part of something that's bigger than the school, but is perhaps more supportive than the other systems that might be around you.
In my experience, partnerships are the embodiment of the idea that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So where partnerships are built on solid foundations, where there is equity, where there is passion and energy from everybody involved in that partnership, the dividends that come out for the students are significantly higher than perhaps one school could accomplish doing what it's doing on its own. And I think where you've got strong locality behind your partnership, and where you've got a close network of teachers and students, you can do incredibly powerful work within the area. And I think that extends to students across the sector. I think independent school students have just as much to benefit from this wider partnership approach as state school students. And I think one of the great joys of partnership work is when it's done correctly, everybody feels that collective benefit.
I think it's really interesting talking about the benefits between different types of schools, but obviously the benefits between the ages of the children as well, because our partnership has 32 primary schools, and seeing that the benefits to those children, those younger age children, but the relationships they form with the children that work with us from the local secondary schools is quite incredible, and how it develops, I think, the resilience of our children, but also the opportunities and experiences it provides for the older children as well. So the connections are there for the different ages of children too.
Yeah, I think so. And I think partnership work frees us up in a way that curriculum working doesn't always. So we operate within a curriculum where, ages are siloed, curriculum subject areas are siloed. Partnership work allows us to perhaps break free of some of those boundaries and enable those students to work with older students, younger students, to compete or to collaborate on common ground between things. The well differentiated tasks enable you to run partnership work across a wide range of different age groups. So I think the benefit is kind of top down benefit and a width benefit to those students as well, working outside of curriculum, outside of age groups, and it introduces them to a more natural, holistic way of handling knowledge and working with each other that they would do in real life when they're outside of school. So I think it does prepare students for the real world in a way that the curriculum doesn't always.
Yeah, and the same applies to staff, doesn't it? Because you have the opportunities for your newest members of staff in their own school are perhaps quite limited, aren't they? Your ECT might not have other ECTs to talk to, especially in a smaller school. So creating that network of opportunities for your less experienced staff to connect, to network, to develop their craft together. But then also for your more experienced staff who perhaps are perhaps more set in their ways, perhaps don't have connections, perhaps colleagues that they knew have moved on. So you're developing opportunities for all of staff throughout, your ECTs right through to your senior leaders to connect in that same way as well that you have for your children, and to learn in those different ways from each other as well.
Absolutely. And I think where things are really, really effective is when still staff at all levels are involved in that process, where we've got our heads well engaged with the members of staff that are running partnership activity in the school, where the heads are proud of that partnership activity, and where they are able to come together in a room and joyfully discuss partnership work that they've done together. When we collect our steering groups together and they are able to chat about that, and they're disseminating their newsletters to their parents and their communities, it really shows you the power of partnerships in that way, because they're putting it out there.
Partnerships can only be a good thing. It gives children equality across both sectors. It gives opportunities for everybody to learn from each other, staff, children. It gives opportunities to share resources. It builds communities around geographical areas. I can't think of anything that has come out of it that has been something that we couldn't have worked through or hasn't brought something positive after we've worked through it, if that makes sense.
And it's mutual because our students gain so much as well, coming into a totally different environment to the environment which they have been educated in. They see and hear different things. They learn from you.
Yeah.
They learn skills of communication. They learn how to empathise with children who perhaps have different learning experiences.
And they see that they are children. They're all children. They're all young people. I forget that your students are not necessarily the same age as our really small ones, but they are all young people in the same world with the same aims and goals and aspirations of wanting the same things. What success looks like to ours is the same as what success might look like to yours.
Yes.
So I think it's navigating that kind of relationship between what it means to be a child in this area, educated in different establishments, but we can do that together. And I think in terms of how we've kind of approached it, it has been mutual from the start. Yes, we approached you initially with the idea of actually having young male positive role models for our children. But what's grown out of that is a completely mutually beneficial partnership that can be spread in any school, in any educational establishment. It doesn't need to be single sex, and mixed schools, co-ed, primary, secondary, whatever it is. It doesn't need to be anything. It just has to come from a place whereby both parties are in agreement that this is mutually beneficial for us.
Yeah.
It's not a tick box exercise. It's
No,
not.
and that's really important because I think it was understanding each other
Yeah.
before we actually did anything.
Yeah.
And I think in the past we might have rushed in to say we need to do something,
Yeah.
we need to be seen doing something. But I think what was so important was to say, what do you want?
Yeah.
What do we want? And actually what we thought we could give wasn't necessarily what
Yeah.
you wanted.
And
I remember offering you Latin lessons and
Yeah.
you're thinking, no,
thanks.
those, thank you very much.
As interesting as it would have been. And I think that's what's kind of built out of it is actually what can you support us with? Where is our need? Where are our gaps? You know, actually we've got children for whom phonics is a real challenge. So, you know, can we support in that way? Or are there sports gaps that we could perhaps plug using, you know, your students to help expand the breadth of sport we offer in our schools, things like that. And I think actually you're right. It has to come from a place whereby need is identified from both sides.
Yeah.
It can't be we need to be seen to be doing this because then it all falls apart.
But I think as well, we needed to appreciate we weren't the experts.
Yeah.
You needed phonics support.
Yeah.
But we had boys, but they didn't know how to teach phonics.
Yeah.
But train them.
Yeah.
Help them understand how they can teach phonics. What's the best way of teaching phonics? So actually they use their skills from different situations perhaps at
Yeah.
school, which could then be adapted to suit you. And in the same time, our students gain from it because they're thinking about, well, how do I learn?
Yeah.
How did I begin to read? Because they probably never thought about that themselves. And then they can apply that to their own studies, you know, whether it's at GCSE or A level or beyond. And I think that's something I've learned so much from is that we can't just replicate what we do in a secondary school in a primary school situation. It's thinking about where that crossover is, which I've learned
absolutely.
most from.
We started originally because I was a state school pupil, and I arrived at an independent school and realised that for 90% of the day, 90% of the fantastic facilities were being left alone. They were literally not being used. They were pristine. And I just thought to myself, well, why are we not using these facilities for schools like I went to? And that's kind of where the whole thing started. So to answer the question, how would I approach a state school head? The answer is, why wouldn't you go and approach an independent school?
I've got the joy of being in a secondary school, but also being a school games organiser. So it's about, for us as a district as well, to use a site that has a lot of opportunities to be able to help us with in different sports.
There was a mutual charity. I wanted to use the facilities. I wanted to help the students at the school see sport from a different angle. Had no idea quite where it was going, but wanted to create something where they saw it other than just players in a privileged environment. So we went to a charity who then said, actually, why don't you host the school games? no idea what it looked like. 1,000 children turned up for a cross-country event, which took everyone a bit by surprise. But what that meant was that was the start of a relationship, which meant that we could save that charity and the school games lots of money that they could then use for other events or children who needed it, to, you know, whether that's to hire facilities or enable them to do other things. I don't think we had any idea, I didn't have any idea where it was going when we started this thing. All I knew was there were lots of children that could have benefited from using the facilities, because that was a really obvious benefit. The impact on the children and the relationship that's built up as a consequence, I think, has been built on trust. It's been built on sustainability. It's been built on the fact that you don't take anything for granted.
No.
You go and ask questions. So I think the state school heads might be surprised at what there is available and what people want to give. In order to sort of look at this from a wider perspective, the school games enabled us to not have a specific partnership with any specific school to start with. What it did enable us to do was then for the charity to say, you did a really good job there, but on the other hand, any chance we could use you for this? And then from an independent school's point of view, we suddenly started to branch out into Girls' Leadership Days, which was something we never ever thought we'd do. We then decided, because of where Grant was, we went along and said, well, we're already in a couple of primary schools in the area. Who are your feeder primaries? Because surely we should be working with them.
It was the same ones, wasn't it?
And it was the same ones, but it also, because of that relationship, we were able to knock on the doors of primaries who never knew us, who were prepared to talk to us. And I think that's how those relationships start, which is somebody saying, they're okay, they'll do what they say they're going to do.
For us, it's really important. We work with a large number of schools. We work with a large number of different types of school. So we work with junior schools, secondary schools, special schools, all sorts of different types of school. And what that enables for us is our students to see what life is like outside of the walls of our school, which is really important. So our students get to go out, they get to spend time in the schools. Our partner schools come in and spend time with us. And so there's learning to be had from both sides. And so our students will run events, our partner schools will run events, we run teacher training, they run teacher training. And for us, it's the pooling of resources. So the understanding that once another school joins our partnerships group, their resources become part of the collective. And so we quite often say, you know, when a school wants to use our swimming pool or theatre, they don't ring us to ask if they can use it. They ring to ask if it's free. So we class all of our resources as your resources. And so people can ring us up whenever they want to and use ours. But equally, when schools ring us up and they say, can we use your theatre, and our theatre isn't free, we ring one of our other partner schools and say, is yours free? And we pass it on. And so that's the strength for us, is so many people, so many resources, so much expertise all clubbing together.
I think for us, it's been really instrumental for us to be able to tap into the partnership that offers our pupils much more than we could ever give them as a unit on itself, as a maintained school. We have been fortunate that we've been able to access things like the continuous professional development of teachers. The partnership gives us an opportunity to have bespoke inset sessions, which we do not necessarily have to find the funding for, which is instrumental for every school now, I'd say, with limited funds. It also gives our children an opportunity to really become motivated in their learning because they've got access to resources and experiences, albeit through cultural capital, taking part in theatre productions, albeit in such as taking part in STEAM events to motivate them and inspire their careers. And this, I feel, is something which is priceless, really, because it gives them the foundations they need to really have an understanding of high-quality teaching and learning.
I think that to add to that, what's really important is the funding side of things. So if one school does something on their own, you know, they might spend £500, £1,000 on a guest speaker. Yeah. What we're able to do is use our theatre, put 400 teachers in the room, and still spend £1,000. And so rather than every school in our network spending £1,000 on the same guest speaker for the same topic and costing us as a collective £40,000 or £50,000, we're able to do it once, invite everybody. And what that means is that we can make more out of the same amount of money. So we can get we can fly somebody in who's a specialist in a subject and pay them that little bit more money because we've got so many people in the partnership taking part. And so the teacher training for us is very much about that. It's, we've got expertise in your schools that we use. So you come in and help us. Our teachers go into your school, and then we invite people in from industry as well. And that's a big part of our partnerships network.
An example of that was more recently when we took part in a Christmas production where the children had an opportunity to take part in a live theatre production. Some of them have never been to a theatre before, so it was amazing. And they were with actors and super excited. Lots of practice at the partnership school, lots of really infused children, and children wanted to take part in music and even find out about musical instruments, which we've never had an interest in before. So it's really motivating.
Yeah.
Really
I think a big part of our partnerships network is industry too. So we don't just have a partnership between our schools. We have partnerships with, big industry, universities, charities, basically anybody who'll listen to me. I'll tap them for something, but we'll bring them in. So, bringing in people like the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, we can get those people on board because of the scale of what we do. Yeah. And so we're not just one school ringing up and saying, oh, wouldn't it be lovely if we had? We're 100 schools ringing up and saying, wouldn't it be lovely? So that economy of scale is massive for us.
Yes, I think it's vitally important that we, from a state school perspective, gain so much from the partnership, so much rich experience for our children, some of the co-curricular life that we don't have at our fingertips, both from a budget point of view and a time point of view and a partnership point of view at primary schools, at state primary schools. But also knowing that partnership works two ways, knowing that there's a symbiotic relationship there between state and private is really important for us. The children at the schools we work with really benefit from getting to know our children and our context and the range of pupils that we have as well.
I'm a scientist and have worked with people from the Crick Institute, and a great example of that place is people from different backgrounds, different academic disciplines working together. And it's always struck me that if you bring people together of any age from different backgrounds, the more perspectives who meet together in a sort of melting pot, the better. And we absolutely see that in our partnerships. And so when our independent school, secondary school children meet and collaborate with peers from the state sector, they all bring their own perspectives. Some of their perspectives are similar, some are different. They'll agree on some things, disagree on other things, much as our own children will do the same.
And when these children leave our institutions, they go out into the big wide world and they are mixing with everybody. It's very important not to be enclosed in our bubbles of our own experience and to get out there and explore partnerships from a young age.
In a few short years, that bubble will be popped, whichever bubble they're in, and they will be out working together. And it's real life. And I think in the same way that I'm a big fan of co-ed education, for the reason that these children are going out into a co-educational world, I think bringing children from the state sector and the independent sector to work together is entirely obvious, and it can only be the right thing to do.